finally starting to melt out. So today we're going to talk about how to determine your aerobic threshold. And that's like your most important anchor for your training. So it lets you know where the top of your zone 2 and 1 are. And we're going to do this by doing a heart rate drift test. So hopefully you're at a point with your running, you can run at least an hour the top of what you think is zone 2. So you pick that heart rate, and then what you're going to do, you're going to warm up for 15 minutes, work up to that heart rate, and run for a few extra minutes, make sure your heart rate is stabilized around there. Then what you're going to do, you're going to start a timer, and you're going to run for an hour at that heart rate. And you kind of just want to shoot for that average heart rate. It's easier to do that than with speed, because you can do this test on a treadmill by keeping your speed constant. But outside it's easier to manage your heart rate. So you want to pick an area you can run where there's like a net zero elevation gain. You don't want to do like an out and back, like up a mountain or anything, because how the test works, it splits the run into 2 half-an-hour segments. And if you're staying at the same heart rate that's at the top of your zone 2, your aerobic threshold, your heart rate, your speed will actually get 3 to 5% slower for that second half an hour. And then if you're on a treadmill, your heart rate will get a little bit faster to maintain that speed for the second half. And sometimes you have to do this a few times to nail where your aerobic threshold is. You want like between 3 and 5% drift. If there's more drift, you're a little bit too fast. You take a lower heart rate. And the opposite's true. It's a little too slow. Your zone 2 is probably a little bit higher. And this is like, this is basically like a sub-tempo workout for an hour. So you can do this, every few months to kind of keep track where you're at. I'm not a good example. I haven't done it like in 3 years. But what's cool about your aerobic threshold is that it actually moves a lot when you get more fit. And we'll talk about later how that determines if you should be running zone 1 or 2, depending where it's at. All right, so once you get that hour track, I'm going to show you a website next that lets you calculate if you had the right aerobic threshold by looking how much it drifts. All right, so we're going to figure out our aerobic threshold from the heart rate drift test that we did. So here's an example I did a couple years ago. I was aiming for 155 beats per minute. We can see that my warm-up was 1.88 miles, and I was pretty close to staying at 155 for my average heart rate. And I ran in this like river park that was pretty flat. So what you're going to do, you're going to go to this website. I'll link it below. You're going to upload your TCX file from your watch, and then you need to crop out your warm-up. So I know I ran for an hour before I stopped at the end. So I'll just crop the duration to 1 hour left. So about there. Okay, so 1 hour. And we can see my mean heart rate was about 155 and my drift was 3.6%. So then we're gonna go to uphill athlete. I'll link this below too. And we're gonna go to the bottom here. And if we're between 3.5 to 5%, that is basically your aerobic threshold. Good job. And then if you didn't quite hit that, you need to run faster or slower the next time. And that's it. So here are my last 3 weeks of running. Yeah, so the weather wasn't the best. When I got back, it snowed 2 feet. then all the trails I've been running were totally locked out. So I was a little bit depressed about that. And I rallied the second week out from the race the weekend, although I had to run in 30-mile-per-hour wind. On that run in the wind, there was some like rotten cheese curds dumped on the side of the road, and Shin got a little bit of that, and he was really sick last week. Moose tracks, moose poop. So yeah, but I'm excited to be going to Oregon this week, get lots of trail running in. I'm super stoked. And I'll see ya next week.